So I'm 27 years old right now. I got my undergrad degree, bachelor's, master's, and another master's. I did two masters, one from India, one from the UK, and it feels like nothing I ever achieve is going to get me to fulfill the metrics that I've been thinking of my self-worth, thinking that I've been, grading my self-worth on, in the sense that, you go to one of the top colleges in the world, and you go to another top college in the world for your grad school, and then you get a job, and then that should be like a top sort of job. And it just keeps on going. Go for the next promotion, you go for the next promotion, and that stuff just does not work. And I feel like the entirety of human functioning in society is ultimately comes down to, are you able to integrate yourself in the current sort of version of society, which I think is inconsistent with its own self. Because let's say that the society is made up of great people, and there's an objective standard to which they conform, and if they're functioning normally, and if everyone else is functioning normally, then great, we've got a functional society. But every time a mental health or emotional health problem pops up, instead of saying that the environment was not conducive for the person in question to flourish in society as a citizen of that society, they're going to say that no, let's put him into let's get medicine into his system, like some kinds of psychiatric drugs that will sort of, and these kinds of drugs, they do help obviously, but they only help regulate the nervous system in a way that it wasn't before. They don't really deal with the problem itself, which is that you're not feeling like you belong in society because you're unable to find a niche in which you're competent naturally. And this is what Naval keeps saying all the time, that he uses this word, these terms, even though I don't really like it. He says, productize yourself. If you're, become really great at doing what no one else can do apart from you, or rather find the thing that you're really good at doing, which feels like play to you and work to others, and then you'll just be able to become rich. And whilst I do applaud that particular mindset to getting you to a certain place of certain cadence of thinking, it doesn't necessarily solve the problem. The problem being that growing up in these institutions like schools and universities, and going through that sort of systematization, I think it has led to a point where institutions are being given the kind of credibility of tagging you, of stamping you, that they do not deserve. Because according to institutions, you're supposed to, there's this undertone in society that you're only supposed to do, and there's even a gradation really, that there are certain jobs which are blue collar, certain jobs that are white collar, certain which like high finance, and that stuff comes to the extreme end. It's like a class system, right? And even though you might be earning a shit ton of money, there's still this class system to take care of, unless the world is basically split between people who are doctors and nurses and are professionals in that particular niche, and then there are people who are in the creative arts. And sure, people would have all kinds of diverse friend circles, but to But how I see it is that these friend circles usually form if you're sort of living together. Like if you're a roommate or your neighbor, next door neighbor is a doctor and you're an artist, and sure, those relationships thrive. But I think we are used to not looking for people who are different than us. Like, let's say if the doctors were living in a building that was like if there were residents, residency program. I think that's what it means. I'm not sure. Wait, let me just Google it. Does a doctor in resident actually mean that they live in the hospital? Mean that they live near the hospital? Not necessarily. The term resident in medicine doesn't primarily mean someone who lives at the hospital, though historically many did. A resident is a doctor who has finished med school and is now in specialized training. Oh, that's what residency is. Basically, I'm saying if they were living in like a hostel type of a situation where everyone else was a doctor as well, they wouldn't have gone out of their way to sort of, on a statistical level, they wouldn't have gone out of their way to find people who are different than them. And I think that's really what bugs me, because what I'm starting to realize is you need people who are different from you in order to get a different viewpoint. And you can find different viewpoints within the same sort of niche that you're working in, but it's like you've been roboticized completely and you're just, a cog in the machine, and you're not really able to think for yourself, really able to know for yourself, to ask questions that nobody has asked before. Like, it's become a system that suppresses dissent, in the sense that we're just supposed to take everything at face value and roll with it, even though if we disagree with the system, and those who try to bring about a change in the system, it takes them decades to do so. And a lot of people have basically, spent, or rather expended, their entire lives doing so, which I don't think is a way to live. So the question that the question that I now wish to ask myself is, how do we build systems that are self-consistent in the way that they question themselves? So even if there's discord or dissent, the system, instead of suppressing it, it encourages it. It encourages dissent and encourages change. And change can only come when the power is like the power dynamics, or the hierarchies of power, or the architecture of how power is shaped, is somehow changed. And so it's really weird. I mean, it almost feels like an impossible task, and I don't know how to do it. But yeah, that's something that I want to work on. Now, content creation has definitely sort of, we didn't expect that content creation would blow up this big, and you would have people recording their videos like this in their bedrooms and putting it up on YouTube and Instagram and be able to like gain traction and have like millions of followers. And you've basically got these bedroom celebrities, and I mean that with all respect and in the nicest ways possible. I'm not taking a piss on them, just in case. And that's good, because that is good, in the sense that we were able to manage, the society was able to manage how to get voices of individuals that wouldn't otherwise get their voices out there, like through radio shows or TV or acting, and in theatre or movies. Now we can learn about a lot of people through social media, what their likes and dislikes are, what their opinions are. And I think that's great, but I think there's a serious lack of integration, in the sense that personally we may stumble across people on social media, And we can then get to know that, okay, this person likes and dislikes this, and this person has or doesn't have these particular set of skills. But I feel like there's not, we haven't really integrated social media into the marketplace where people are basically exchanging value